Ollie started in our drop-in socials, but really needed some more structure, so he has been moved to the social puppy program. He's historically been pretty fearful of other dogs, and so we're starting him with Petunia, who's a lot smaller than he is, and really working on building confidence just existing around other dogs right now through doing a food scatter. And you can see that his tail is tucked. He's still slinking around quite a bit, not quite sure what to make of the situation. This is his first session with us in the social puppy program. And as you can see, we're taking it really structured, really slow. He's definitely getting more curious, but he does revert back to tail tucked and slinking around every now and again. That was really good, though. We didn't see him flee away from that situation when she turned towards him. So we're going to try and get a little structured sniff here if he is willing. There he goes. Really curious about Petunia. And now we're going to go into his second session of the first day where he pretty much blew us away. He was immediately interested in playing. The problem here, though, is that Petunia is like, okay, you're coming on a little bit strong. And so Petunia is going to need some structure. So she's now sitting in Christine's lap, and he is working on engaging her in play. And I think Christine, it looks like, is trying to direct him towards some toys. He's being really gentle, but Petunia's like, sir, you're a lot bigger than me, and you're a lot faster than me, and I'm not quite into the rambunctious play. But he's trying really hard. This looks really promising. We're going to try one more time with Petunia out of Christine's lap, but it still proves to be a little bit too much for her, and so we're going to move on and work on introducing him to another dog. Though not recorded, he actually met Crosby in the smaller space that him and Petunia were playing in, and he was doing really well, so we brought him to this larger space to play. And when he was in the larger space, he started doing some running games and then got overwhelmed. And so we're actually going to go back to structure. We're really trying to entertain Crosby and let him exist around Crosby, and Crosby's pretty chill. And so he's a good match for him, but we went back to the structure because we started showing signs of fear again with Ollie. So he hasn't gone back to play yet, but we can see that his comfort just existing around Crosby is looking a lot better. He's a-okay with, Crosby grabbing items around him, not moving, slinkily away. He seems more curious at this point, which is exactly what we want to see. And we expect to see play pretty soon here. And some of this weird body language is actually because there were people working on the swamp cooler. And so they're kind of like, what is that banging around? So this is actually not part of the dog scenario. But if you're seeing weird little artifacts there, that's why. Christine's feeding because we don't want them to be scared of those noises either. And it's all socialization. Okay, so on to day 2, session 1. We start him out with Petunia again. It ends up that he's still too high energy for her, and so we bring Crosby in as a buffer because Petunia likes Crosby and Ollie likes Crosby. And he's being really gentle here, but she's just still not into it, and so we actually just go back to Ollie and Crosby for a little bit. And here they're kind of doing the dance of the awkward junior high social, is what I call it, where they're just kind of figuring each other out. And like I said, they're pretty awkward, but they're not scared of each other, just not quite sure how to, normally engage yet. I'm just going to speed up this next clip for time's sake. This is just more of them kind of getting a feel for each other. I wanted to show it, but I don't want the length of this video to be 2 hours. And so he's really interested, but we see him kind of going between interest and then getting down low, which is his default when he's not quite sure what to do. And then next we're going to see Ollie really start to engage with Crosby. And when dogs first start playing, they are incredibly awkward. Like right now he's trying to do this humpy move and, he doesn't know what he's doing. He's trying to figure it out. He's doing a lot of over the back stuff, which can be considered rude, but Crosby has a ton of padding with a lot of dogs. And so he's really forgiving about it. He's just giving him time to work through it. But you can see that Ollie's trying, you know. He wants to learn how to play with him. He's just not quite sure how to do it yet. So lots of over the back stuff. And then what you're going to see is it's going to get really spazzy in just a little bit. I've mentioned this in previous videos, but when dogs first, they've been really fearful and they first start to play, what happens is that they don't have refined play skills and their excitement is really high. And so they're doing all these kind of bonkers maneuvers, but without, you know, without being refined. And so it looks really crazy initially. But you can see that he's super happy and they're like, oh, there's our beloved Petunia. Okay, we're going to go back and play. So Crosby's doing a really good job of not putting weight on Ollie, trying to engage with him and keep him engaged without stressing him, which is really great. Okay, so here's, I think this is where we start to see the bonkers play. So he's going to be moving really fast and then mix in these little freezes in the play. And I think this is just a little bit of conflict and a little bit of just giving himself an opportunity to assess. But he goes right back to it, gets a little bonkers, and then he'll probably dive down again. Yep, there we go. He's like, I want to play Crosby. Crosby's like, well, let's play. And you can see that smile on his face, which is really great. And he's like, oh, that was a little bit much, but he's going to come back right back to it, and that recovery is really great. Okay, so I'm going to speed up the video again just for time's sake. And now he's feeling really comfortable, so here comes out Mega Spaz. And then next up, we're going to see him go back to joining the group with Petunia and see if he can play down. And he does do a really, really nice job of that. We have a couple of, you know, things that we think is going on with Petunia that are just making it so that she doesn't really want to play. And so we just go back to playing with Crosby. But he wasn't doing anything wrong there. He was playing really gently, which is what we want to see. And then we can see him go back to kind of funny, cute, very puppyish behaviors with Crosby again. And they just keep going. And one thing that I like about this is that Petunia is actually still in the space in these clips, but he's selecting to leave her alone and give her space, which is really great. He's understanding that she's not super interested in playing, so she kind of ducks in there. He sees her, but he keeps playing with Crosby. And previously, he was really obsessed with Petunia, so that's a really great choice on his end. So with things going really well with Crosby, it's time to introduce him to another dog. And so we're going to introduce him to Tatum. And you'll see the moment when they both realize that Tatum's coming in. Oh, another dog. And so this is his first time meeting him, and you can see that he's already pretty excited about it, which is great. Tatum and Crosby live in the same household together, but they're very different personality types. And Ollie is really excited to play with Tatum. This is exactly what we want to see as far as progression. And the thing that's actually helping this go so well is that Tatum, you know, while he does like to play in a really bouncy fashion, he doesn't put a lot of weight on Ollie, which is, you know, ideal for a dog like Ollie. And there he's getting a little bit like, oh, you're sniffing me, I'm feeling a little bit nervous. But he's not leaving the situation. I would say he's curious, maybe a little bit conflicted, but still wanting to play. A couple of those little head swipes, and Ollie's like, oh, I'm not sure what to make of this. And that's okay. You know, he's learning to play with a different play style. Bat, 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 bat. But he really does end up liking Tatum quite a bit. Very curious about him. So we'll see him with Crosby and Tatum together, but Crosby's definitely getting tired. He's been in playgroup for a while, and so we're going to cycle him out and let these two play together in just a little bit. But you can see he's really comfortable at this point, and these dogs are much larger than he is, so, trending quite well. And if you'll remember early on when he was playing with Crosby, Crosby's super forgiving about like the licky face, going over the back and so on. And Tatum is too, but he doesn't like it as much. And so you were going to see him just kind of tell Ollie like, hey, too much right there. And Ollie's fine with it, He's just like, okay, I'll tone it down a little bit. And there we're just redirecting towards a toy. This is all going really well. So we're going to introduce another dog. So the dog that we're going to be bringing in is Dixon, and Dixon is a boxer. And if you're familiar with dogs, you know that boxers have a pretty unique play style. And so we're going to go ahead and bring him on leash. Boxers are notorious for going over the top of the head when they're playing. They like to play upright. And since this is his first experience playing with a dog like this, we've got Dixon on leash. And immediately he goes over the top of the head, and Ollie's like, oh, that's a little bit too much for me. So we allow them the engagement, but I'm trying really hard to prevent Dixon from going over the top. And we can see that Ollie is, curious about Dixon, but he's like, I don't know if I like your play style. And then we've got Tatum trying to get back to the play style that they were doing previously. And Tatum and Dixon are quite well acquainted. But you can see that Ollie is not making attempts at this point to move towards Dixon. And so we know that he's not super comfortable with that type of play, and probably just, looking at a dog that has a totally different image. He doesn't look like anything like the dogs that he's played with so far. And Dixon again going over the top, and Ollie's like, no thanks, pretty much immediately. And this is the thing, dogs do often have play preferences. Not all dogs are going to be appropriate matches for each other. But even though we did attempt to introduce them, it didn't go as well as we had hoped. But we want to end Ollie on a positive, and so we just pair him back one more time with Tatum to make sure that he ends on a positive note. And you can see just from that interaction with Dixon, he's a little bit tentative going right back to it, and he says, oh, that was too much. I'm holding Dixon over there. He says that was a little bit too much. Well, we want them to get back to that joy. So there he's finding it again. And we'll kind of end on this note. And this is what we mean by we can definitely rehabilitate a dog, but sometimes they still need support. Definitely feeling optimistic about other dogs, which is great for a 4-day program. But he does have certain preferences. And so when he deviates outside of those preferences with matches, he's definitely going to need support. But all in all, I would call this a win. Great job, Ollie.